Bonjour and welcome to the Red Lake Nation College Gikendaasowin Podcast. Join us each week for discussions on topics including culture and language, career exploration, RLNC student spotlights, student projects, and other RLNC services. This week we have part 2 of interviews conducted by RLNC students for Professors Tom Hokinson's Fall 2021 Cultural Geography class. Red Lake Nation College would like to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities for their generous support in this creation of these podcasts. Miigwech.
Hello, I'm Dr. Thomas Hokinson. I teach social and behavioral science classes here at the Red Lake Nation College. Today you'll be listening to a couple interviews of students I had in my cultural geography class. The goal of this project was to interview either parents, elders, or other members of the community in order to see what it was like in the 1960s, 70s, or 80s. I hope you enjoy the interview.
Hello, my name is Selena Beasley, and I am doing an interview with Tom Barrett, and this is regarding fun activities that Tom has had on the lake. So go ahead, Tom.
Well, hello, everyone. I guess I grew up on this lake. I can't remember ever being away from it too long. There was a few years in my life where I wasn't around it, but most of my life I've been here on this lake, so there's plenty of moments where we've had good times on this lake. But most of my memories, good memories especially, are when I was fishing, commercial fishing with my father and my oldest son, Bob. We'd go out. You'd go out early in the morning to pull nets, and you'd basically watch the sun come up. You'd be out there so early, you'd try to beat the sun, and just spending that quality time with 3 generations of my family. That's something I'll treasure forever. And on the flip side of that, we would set nets in the evening, and there again, we'd go out late in the evening and watch the sun go down. Once we'd get all our nets in a lake, we would just sit there. Sometimes sit out in the lake when it was real calm, and we'd just sit there and we would visit. And my dad would tell stories about when he was fishing when he was younger. And when those stories that from there, those older natives a long time ago, they didn't even have motors. They paddled their boats out there. They used oars, so they did basically manual labor. It was cool listening to those old stories, and those are the things I always remember. And unfortunately, we don't commercial fish the lake anymore, so it's a little bit harder to really pass those stories on to my younger kids and stuff. But we still fish. We still have this opportunity to go out there and fish for the fishery. And actually, just sitting out there ice fishing, you can still have real good quality time with your family out on that lake, really enjoying the day, especially on a nice spring day when it's 35, 40 degrees out and there's still a lot of thick ice. It's just beautiful out there. You can sit out there and have a good time. I've been out there with my friends, me and Daryl Maxwell, Buck Jordan, Pete Netto. We'd be out there, we'd have 40 lines in a lake, and we'd be chasing them around and terrorizing each other, laughing, because somebody's always doing something stupid to laugh at. So that's always a good time especially when somebody slips and falls on the lake. That seems
Yeah.
I don't know why everybody thinks that's funny, but damn near fall out of your chair laughing at somebody. But the lake really holds a special place in my heart, man. I've lived here. I'm looking at it just as we speak right now. I look at it every day out the back kitchen window of my house. So that's how close I am to this lake. And, growing up, that's all we've ever done. We used to swim down here as a kid. We can't do it now. Things have changed. There's kind of got invaded with some kind of weeds, some bulrushes, and my grandkids can't swim here like I used to. And those are good times. I'd have my friends from down in Big Stone, my cousins from down here. We'd all be swimming down here. Then after we get done swimming, we'd grab our slingshots and BB guns and go hang out in the woods somewhere for the day. Things were so much different back then. We never spent a lot of time in a house. we were always around, and it seemed like we were always around the lake. No matter what we were doing, we were always probably 10, 15 minutes from the lake, whether we were walking or on our bikes or whatever. But, if we're out playing out in the woods as young kids and it was real hot, we just quit and we'd go for a swim in the lake. I mean, you can't beat that kind of freedom as a young person growing up. And, like I see the change in things there. The kids aren't so active out in the woods and things of that nature. I do realize things change, but even our lake has changed. You don't have that easy access just to go swimming anymore. Where when we wanted to, we could stop almost anywhere we were along that lake and go swimming. Now you got to find different spots where it's, the lake is clean. There's no weeds or rocks where you can go swimming. So the lake has changed. The way kids approach life has changed. So as it, I guess that just evolution and, it's hard to really stress to the young ones nowadays how much they're missing, I guess. But then they look at me and say, well, you don't know what you're missing. You don't know nothing about computers. So it's kind of
it's a generation gap. It is a generation gap that exists out there. And, even it has changed a lot from when I was younger going to the lake. Like, there's just specific landings you could go to or beaches like the Cutoff and Sandy to get a good access to the lake. But I remember playing like at the cliffs, by the powwow grounds, playing during the powwows and down at the landing by the behind the Red Lake store. So there's some specific landings I know about, but yeah, I see a lot of change now too, just from when I was growing up.
One thing we used to do too as a kid, and that involved my mother, and she would take us down walk along the lake shore, and you get to this one area, and you've seen them, all the rocks that are along the beaches and stuff.
Yeah.
But what we would do is we would actually break those rocks, and we'd find fossils in them.
Really?
Little shells, seashells, and things of that nature. So just doing things like that with your whole family.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember one time, I don't know what happened to it. I wish we had kept it, but in this very house I live in, I grew up in this house, and we had this rock. It had to be probably almost 2 feet in diameter, a good 1.5 feet in diameter, and the whole thing was in the shape of a seashell, or I don't know what you would call it, but you could see the outline of that critter at the time. I don't know, a snail, I guess.
Yeah.
It looked exactly, you could just see the outline of that snail inside that rock. And that was one that we just busted open and it split right in half.
Wow.
So I don't know if things are, if a kid still did that when, if they would find them, but that's what we used to do. I always found that real interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
And, and when we were fishing too, one thing my mom and dad, we'd always, every spring before we'd start, we'd always make a little tobacco pouch. And make our offerings to the lake, and just being thankful for having that lake and what it provides to us. So we would do things like that. My parents weren't really traditional; they were Catholics, but they still believed in that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good that they carried those teachings on to you, and you were able to carry them on to your kids and grandkids.
Yeah, and we still do that now. In fact, we're a little bit more. The family's a little bit more leaning traditional practices when it comes to things like that. So we do think of, we try to take care of the lake when we're out fishing. We try not to throw anything in the lake when we're out fishing out of a boat, or if we're out there ice fishing, we don't leave cans and bottles on the lake. We want to make sure we leave it as clean as possible.
Yep.
So, the next generation is going to take that over. I'm pretty excited now that I have a grandson. I'll be able to take him ice fishing and teach him all these things.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
As long as COVID don't get me.
Yeah, we gotta stay safe right now. Gotta prevent that.
Yeah, we're all just being cool, and but the lake, like I said, it just holds a special place in my heart, and it's always been there. I look at it every day.
Yeah, and it's right by our work too. That's one thing
Yeah.
that I really enjoy seeing every day when I'm at the going into work. That lake is right there, and it's just a calming effect for me. So, well, I appreciate the time that you took for me today to do this interview about the lake. And thank you all for listening. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, my name is John Kingbird, and I'm going to be interviewing my grandmother, Carol May, on growing up on the shores of Red Lake. So where did you grow up on Red Lake?
I grew up in Red Lake, between Redby and Red Lake, and pretty much lived there most of my childhood. And one of my sons still lives in the house that we grew up in. And I live down by the lake where we had our garden growing up as kids.
Okay, so you grew up between Red Lake and Redby, and your son still lives in the house that you grew up in. You also said you had a garden. What are some of the things you grew in your garden?
We grew pretty much everything: potatoes, corn, radishes, carrots, beans, peas, all kinds. And yeah, we had to work on that all summer long. We'd come after we'd get done working around the house, getting our chores done, then we'd have to come down to the lake here and work on the garden.
So this garden, did you have multiple families involved in it, or just your family?
Just our family, and then once in a while someone would come by and help themselves, but that was kind of the way it was around here.
So this is before you had produce available to you and before they had agricultural explosion where they had mass-produced stuff where you can get anything you want now in stores. So you had to grow whatever you guys wanted or what was in season.
Yeah, we just kind of grew what we had. Like, we used it when it was in season, and then we'd save for the winter. We had storage.
Would this be done by canning?
Yeah, somewhat we'd can. My mother would can. She made, we'd gather choke cherries and blueberries for her so she could make jam, and then she'd freeze a lot of it.
What are some of the activities that you guys did growing up for fun?
We swam in the summertime, played softball. We could come down to the lake whenever we wanted. We didn't have to have anybody with us. We could just come down by ourselves and with our friends and relatives. Stay at the lake all day, play softball with our neighbors, and ride bikes, just different things. Maybe go to a movie every once in a while in Redby.
So you're talking about a movie in Redby. What was this, a drive-in or a movie theater?
No, it was a movie theater. And as we got older, my mom would take us to the drive-in in Bemidji. But yeah, we had a movie theater in Redby that played all the latest movies, and we had popcorn and whatever else they had in the movie theaters now.
So what are some of the household chores and duties you had growing up?
Well, we had to help out with everything. We had to help my dad and mom with the fishing every summer. They'd get the nets, and then we'd have to take fish out, hang all the nets. And then after that, we'd have to go in and clean the house, take care of our little brothers and sisters. And we had to help with the cooking, a lot of cleaning with the big family. But yeah, mainly do all that. And that's all.
So how would you say your upbringing was different than your children's upbringing on Red Lake?
Well, we had to work harder than our own children because we had to help around the house more, and my kids, they helped out and everything, but they didn't have as many chores to do because we all worked. When my kids were growing up, we worked because we didn't have any more fishing in that. The net setting was done for a while, for 10 years. So yeah, then they had more TV. We didn't have much TV growing up, so they got to watch TV in the evenings but they did go outside all the time in the summertime. They didn't stay in a lot. There wasn't as much to do inside as there was to do outdoors.
So you said there's a period where you couldn't net for 10 years?
Yep, we had to stop for a while because most of the walleyes were gone and from netting, and then sports fishermen up north. It was just a combination of both. And then we had the fishery department at the Red Lake DNR come in and help stock put new minnows and whatnot in there. So now the Red Lake is doing better now than it was. So we have no more netting, but everybody is kind of, they only fish hook and line now.
Growing up on the Red Lake shores, what was your favorite season and why?
I think it was in the fall because we were all winding down from taking care of nets. School started, and I liked school. And then just getting ready for the winter. We had to do all that. We'd go out before school started, and my mom and dad would go ricing, and that's how we would get our school clothes from ricing. And then school would start, and then we just kind of concentrate on that till springtime.
How did the culture influence your upbringing on the Red Lake shores?
Well, just by growing up watching my dad fish in the summertime. So we got a lot of our food from fishing, hunting, trapping, wild rice. We did berry picking. We picked choke cherries, blueberries, maintaining our garden, and doing a lot of ricing, and then we save it, not all of it. But yeah, it's just different from the way, because I was more into the culture as I got older. We did a lot of, we went to a lot of powwows when my kids were growing up, and went to ceremonies and try to learn how to speak the language again. And now My grandchildren and my sons, all, they know how to speak the language, and they're going to school for that yet.
So you said you at once knew how to speak fluent? Are you somewhat?
No, I never did speak fluently. My mother and dad did, but not us. We didn't really. We would just catch a word here and there because they would speak to each other and their friends. But when they were growing up, they weren't allowed to speak the language, so they kind of just spoke it in private.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to join us next week as we hear from RLNC instructor and academic advisor, Dr. Carla Norris Rainbird, and her interview with RLNC board member and RLNC spiritual advisor, William May, conducted in July 2019. Miigwech.
A miigwech to the following for their efforts in the creation of this Red Lake Nation College Gikendaasowin Podcast episode. Opening and closing music by Director of Equity, Cultural Education, and Archives, Floyd Buck Jourdain. Opening introduction and closing preview by Recruitment and Retention Coordinator and Director of Social Media, Michael Whitecloud. Student introductions by RLNC instructor, Dr. Thomas Hokinson. Our student hosts this episode, Selena Beasley and John Kingbird. Our guest speakers this episode, Thomas Barrett Sr. and Carol May. Production by Innovation Center Coordinator, Brandon Spears. And the National Endowment for the Humanities for their generous support. Miigwech, and have a good day.